Welcome to Brow 101 for Beginner MUAs. Thank you so much for purchasing, and I hope you like it. I hope you take all the advice and the application I'm going to show you right now, right here. Stay tuned. The first things first, we're going to go over tools. Depending on if you are a licensed esthetician, a licensed cosmetologist, or you're not licensed at all. And we're not talking about certificates, we're talking about an actual state license. It is a difference, it is important. So let's say you're not licensed by state, right? So these are the things that you want to do when it comes to grooming and the tools that you want to carry. So for grooming, the two things that you can carry that is safe, it varies from state to state, so be very mindful of what you're using. But you can carry a spoolie. This helps to brush up the brows and to put them in the right place, brush up and outward. And we'll get more into that. And then of course your brow shears or your brow scissors, and it looks like this. Next, in your prep or in your tools that you're going to need, tools and products, you're going to need something to prep the brows with. So I like to use Nicotinamide blurring balm powder in Universal. This helps to mattify the area, especially if they have oily, wet brows. This is perfect once the area is clean. It's not pictured, but you also want micellar or micellar water to clean off the brows. You'll do this during skin prep, so the brows is along with it. So you want that to clean off the brows, and then moving on to your prep products. Next, you want to have some type of strong, tight bristles that are skinny that can help glide on concealer if you choose to use concealer or a foundation to clean up your brows. Next, I put mine all depotted. I don't really carry concealer, but you can use foundation that's to have a thicker texture, like a thicker cream texture, to use as concealer to clean up the brows. So you want some type of product just like that. Then of course your brow products. First you have your brow pomade. The next one is your pencil to do more hair-like strokes. And the last one that I don't have, but basically you can use your eyeshadow as well, is it comes in a pan, so it's like a brow powder. That works just the same as well, but it works differently depending on the type of brows you have in your chair. And that is all you need for brows. Sanitation, the first thing you want to do before you start touching your client's face is to, of course, wash your hands. And you want to make sure you are using hand sanitizer. I like to do this in the presence of my client's eyes so they know I'm clean and I'm also sanitized at the same time. You also want to double check to make sure that your tools that you're using are also sanitized and disinfected. So you can spray it with 70% alcohol just to make sure. You want to do this prior to them arriving because it may carry some wet residue still, so you don't want to do it right at the moment that you're starting, but you want to do it a little bit before. And so we're talking about these two items. When you are grooming your client, especially if you're a non-cosmetologist, which a lot of makeup artists are not, so you do want to make sure that the brow area is clean. We want to prep to groom the brows. You want to make sure there's nothing on the brow, nice and clean. You want to brush up the front area. You want to brush in the area that it generally grows in, up towards the front, unless the brow hairs tell you something different. Brush upward about this part of the brow, off at an angle when you get to this part of the brow right before the arch, and kind of slight downward angle towards this part of the brow. And what you're doing is you're checking to see if there's any hairs that are sticking out of the natural brow shape. You're gonna take your spoolie, you're gonna hold the hairs or brush the hairs slightly into that place, and you're going to line the brow shears against the skin. Go really close to the brow hairs, the edge of it, and cut. You won't cut them. That's why you can use this. As long as you line it up with the brow the natural curvature of the brow. And you continue to brush to see if there's any hair sticking out. You don't want to go in because that will cut off the brow hairs horizontally, and you don't want to do that. So you're just going along the edges just to see if there's any brow hair sticking out. Now you will have clients that have super long brow hairs. That's fine, you're gonna do the same thing that I'm doing. Now this does take a little bit of time, so you do want to prep your client saying like, hey, if your brows aren't groomed, I have to put in this extra service, the grooming service, to make sure that you have upkeep brows, okay? So you're gonna do that all along here. Now let's say the brow hairs are super long coming down this way. So you wanna brush the brows straight at an angle, downward angle, to see if there's any hair sticking out coming downward. If so, go back and you cut along the edge. And take your time as well. If you don't see anything there, don't cut. Rule of thumb. And of course, you want to line the shears up against the brow. Like so. Then once you're done, brush them back into place. That's what you can do when it comes to brow grooming for non-cosmetologist esthetician. If you are an esthetician or a cosmetologist, you should know what to do, but if not, please let me know and I'll make a separate video for that as well. We are ready to go. We're ready to put these brows on, right? Micellar water, because remember there isn't anything on the brow, so you can use micellar water to clean up. And then you want to get into a product that is going to prime, kind of mattify the brows, okay? So I'm taking a bit of that blurring balm powder from Danessa Myricks. So I'm going to put a little bit of that, and just, there's no like right or wrong way to do this. Just make sure it goes over the brow hairs and around the area. It's not going to change up the brow, it's just going to mattify it. It's going to help the brow products to stick on to the brow area better. Let's talk about the brow products that you're going to use. The brow pomade. But when should you be using the brow pomade? You can use the brow pomade in any client. However, specifically, it's great for clients who does not have visible brow hairs, because it's more tacky and it has more of a wax like base to it that grabs onto the skin. Now, if you have to make sure that your brow area is definitely mattified so that it has something to hold on to. You can use this because it's strong enough to show up on the skin. Now, like I said, it's strong enough to show up. So if you decide to use this with somebody that already has brow hairs, you do want to use this very lightly. You want to be not so heavy-handed. So that's a brow pomade. That's when I usually pull it out when I see like some areas in the brow are not there. Then I will pull this out to give me the look that I'm looking for. The Hair Like Stroke pencil. This is what I use 99% of the time. I use a pencil, a retractable pencil, to fill in the gaps that are sparse in the brows, right? So these are great for hair-like strokes. I'm someone that already has brows, or they have sparse brows. If they don't have hair at all, it's hard for a small pencil like this to really show up. You see here, it's really, really tiny. So, I wouldn't use, there's different kinds of pencils. This is just a really skinnier version. There's a thicker one, like Morphe carries a thicker brow pencil, and that will show up, but these Hair Like Stroke pencils, it won't show up as best as you think it will. So it's great for someone that you're filling in brows to use this. And of course the brow powder. The brow powder is also great for filling in gaps. Now I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't necessarily use it for someone that has no brows at all. I would use a brow pomade or a thicker brow product pencil. Now the colors to choose from, it also depends on the brows, the color of the brows. I wouldn't go with the exact color of the brows because that's just going to make it naturally darker or more pigmented than what you see. You want to go for something that's a tiny bit brighter than the brow color, like the brow hair color. Okay, like for example, mine is brown, but I can go away with like soft brown from ABH, which is not as dark. It's in between, it's like a medium brown. So I will go for that particular shade. Be careful that some brow colors can come off very red. So if their brows aren't red, don't go for red. So you do want to have some type of variety in your kit, from browns to reds to dark browns, almost black. So to kind of hit all of the spectrum when it comes to brows. Let's dive into application. So a couple things about brow application. You want to pay attention to the placement and the pressure that you're using with your hands. What I mean by pressure is that depending on what you're using, whatever tool you're using, pressure can vary. So with hair-like strokes, if you are just filling in the brows, like the brows are sparse, it doesn't need that much, it just needs a little bit of shaping and filling, which I'm going to show you here, then you don't need a ton of pressure. You just need soft pressure to go against the brows to make something happen. Now if they don't have any brow hairs at all, you don't need heavy pressure, but you do need a bit more than a soft pressure when it comes to using, if you're not using a brow pencil. If you're using a pomade and they don't have hair, then you do want to use a bit more pressure when it comes to putting on the brow for them. So you got to be careful. So if you're using a tool, right, my tool of choice is the pencil, but more of the skinnier pencil. Like I said, Morphe has this, ABH also has this type of pencil, and MAC also has this type of pencil. Okay, so my hand placement is a little bit further back. It's not up close. The closer you are to edge, the closest to the product, it's gonna give more intense pressure without you even putting that much work into your wrist. The further back you are, give yourself some room, gives softer pressure. And also how you're placing your hand on the particular tool. So it could be a brush, it could be a brow pencil. If you're holding it like how you write a pencil, this is how I write, right? With a pencil or a pen. And I try to anchor my hand and draw on hair-like strokes that way. It's gonna automatically give me heavier application, and it's not gonna look the same as if I were to hold my hand with two fingers, right? As you can see here, I'm left-handed, so I'm holding it with my thumb and my pointer finger, and I'm using my pinky. I'll use my pinky as a anchor, not my entire hand, because when I do my brows, my face is on, my foundation and everything is on. I do my brows last, but if you were to do your brows first, it's the same thing. Okay, so you do want to practice anchoring your pinky against wherever you need it. You're never gonna need it up here for brows, but you're gonna need it maybe on the cheek, on closest to the brow area, depending on the area that you're working in. If you're working in the front, your pinky to the bridge of the nose, to guide where you want it, or up here to guide where you want it. Could be at the end of the brow to guide the end. So you never want to mimic like you're writing on your face or your client's face, because you're too close to the edge of the product. And writing, when you write something, it gives a lot of pressure because you want that, you want people be able to see a handwriting. If I write like this is going to give me very light handwriting. So it's the same thing. So if I want heavier pressure, this isn't, trust me, anytime you could have the right products, but you holding it the way you're holding it is giving too much intense and pigment of the product. So light hand, 2 fingers, hold it back away from where we call the ferrule in this particular area, and you want your pinky to only be your anchor. I generally start nowhere near the front, because if you start in the front, that is where the most pigment is going to be. So depending if you're using a powder, if you're using a pomade, if you're using a pencil, if you start in the front, it's gonna give the most pigment. Start either in the center or towards the end. I like to start on the bottom and outline my brow and then fill in. See where I'm anchoring my pinky? I'm anchoring my pinky on my cheek. Now, I'm not applying a lot of pressure because, mind you, there's makeup there. So I'm applying soft pressure. You can have something to block, like maybe a tissue or a puff or something to help block the area so you're not making an imprint. And you're gonna come in and you're going to do flicking hair-like strokes, okay? But since I'm creating shape, I am gonna kind of give a little bit more pressure. The way that I give pressure, I just slightly press down, like I'm showing you here, slightly press down against the brow to give me the pressure that I'm looking for. Come in closer. So you can see some of the colors showing up. So this won't work for somebody that ain't got no brows. Nah, you need a bit more product in there in order for it to really do its thing. So I outline, as you can see, I'm outlining the bottom. Now there's a mistake, you already know the deal. We're gonna clean it up a little bit later. It also depends on the type of brow that your client wants. If they come to you, they know the kind of brows you do. So I love hair-like stroke brows, no matter if they have brows or not. Get a feathered hair-like stroke, more realistic brows. So I am outlining and I'm already starting to fill in the back end of my brow. So I'm anchoring my pinky the entire time, and I'm doing flicking motions. This is my hand movement, flicking motions inside the brow to fill in. Now, as I'm coming close to the edge, as you can see, I slow down and apply a bit more pressure because I really want that color to show up. As you can see, this is a little bit lighter than my actual brow hairs, which is great. Can I go for something a tiny bit darker? If I'm feeling froggy, I can. So as I'm coming towards the front, remember I outlined the bottom, I started filling in the tip, then I started to outline the top. When I filled in the tip, I go with the direction the hair is growing. So it's going downward diagonal, so that's where I'm going to put my hair-like strokes. I'm not gonna color it in. We're not, filling the gaps like we're in kindergarten, no. So then I come to the center, I'm going horizontally horizontally upward, because that's how the brow hair grows for me. Okay, so you do want to take a look at your client's brow hairs to see the direction that it grows in. Now the front, if you remembered, I brushed upward. So just to get it together, I'm gonna brush it. Yes, you should be brushing it in between. I am coming upward strokes lightening my pressure as I'm coming towards the front, holding my hands at an angle. And now this is the same I would do for my client, and light pressure with the line coming towards the front, because I want the front of the brows to be more realistic than any other area of the brow. I come back in and I lightly brush up the product. I say lightly because if I brush too hard, it's going to destroy what I just put down, okay? Because remember, we did hair-like strokes. So go back in the areas that are a little janky or not as pigmented as the other areas, and I'm going back into fill. Move your client where you need them. If you're over here, please move your client and position yourself where you're not all up on them, but you're anchoring your pinky and getting that product where you need it. Brushing up, brushing off to the side if you're in the center, at the edge or the end, downward at an angle. As far as concealer goes, you do want to find a concealer that is closest to the skin tone. I don't conceal on the top, so I try to keep that area as clean as possible. But if you do decide to, if you're like, I need to conceal the top for whatever reason, then you also want to use, I would rather use foundation than a concealer, because the concealer shows up more pigmented. It can show up more pigmented than a foundation. So my suggestion or recommendation is to use a foundation, the same foundation you use to do your entire face, not what you highlight with, because it's gonna show up like a halo, and you don't want that. That's not cute at all. So you want to even do skin tone underneath the eyes too. You're gonna cover it. So I'm covering back and front, and I'm not applying a lot of pressure. I keep this usually towards the middle. So I'm going to line it up near the edge of the brow and just do a small cleanup. This is if I was ever cleaning up my brows. I really don't, but sometimes my client would like a more cleaned up brow depending on the client. So I line it up and slow strokes. You don't need a lot of product, especially towards the front area. I drag it down from the edge. Drag it down, and then you can use a blending brush or you can use your finger to warm it up and blend any demarcation line. Refrain from using a lot of concealer underneath here to clean up brows. It's just very excessive. You don't need a lot. You don't need a lot. You don't. Let's say there was too much product over here. The line just looks weird for whatever reason. I'm just gonna clean that up here. Just a tiny bit. Last but not least, you do want to still clean up the brow with the brush just in case you might have missed something. I'm just gonna apply a little bit lighter here just to cover any wonderful brow hairs. You can't really, here's the thing, you can't really cover entire brow hairs, okay? So you want to tell your client to come groomed, because you're not licensed. It's as simple as that. But I'm gonna go with a slightly brighter slightly brighter, just to give it a contrast. If they are a little bit of hair is still there, that's okay. And also educate your clients. There's no magic trick when it comes to grooming the brows if they're not groomed. They're not already groomed. All you can do is recommend your client to see an esthetician or a cosmetologist that can wax or get, thread, whatever, to get those hairs under control for it to be nice and groomed. Other than that, baby, that's all you can do. All you can do is those scissors like I showed you. And that's it. So you want to make sure that concealer or foundation, here I'm using foundation, there is just thick light concealer, and I'm just buffing it out with my fingers. I'm taking a step back to see if there's any demarcation lines. If there's any, I'm gonna continue to blend. Also, you do want to take a look at the brow to see if you need to fill in anything you might have erased that you didn't mean to erase. So a couple of part of my tail is like gone. So I'm coming back in to put that back. You want to use your skin tone powder or skin tone powder of your choice for your client, and to set that particular under the brow bone area, okay? And that's it. You do want to make sure that you're following the points of the brow. The front area of your brows needs to line up with the edge, closest to the edge of your nostril. You see? That's where it should be lining up. The arch of the brow is going to be, so this is your first point. Your second point is going to come from here and it's coming up near the edge of the iris. That's where your arch should be. Okay? And then the last point is going to be from the edge of your eyes, which lines up with the point that we made from the beginning. So again, 1, 2, edge of the iris is your arch, and 3, the edge of your eye is the end point. Nothing needs to go any further out from those points, or the arch doesn't need to be starting anywhere further back or forward in your brow. So when you have those points together, that's when you have the brow that you look for. Now, not every brow is going to have a super strong brow shape. So if they're looking for that and their brows don't even carry that particular brow, natural brow, if it doesn't have a strong arch, don't give it to them. Just educate them on what they have and what you actually can achieve for them and what's going to go with their face naturally, because that's naturally appealing. Anything outside of that looks completely cartoonish and it won't look appealing to them, even though they want it. So be very specific and mindful with how you are creating a brow for them. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.